Hi, my name is Levi,
I'm Patrick.
and this channel is called Levi and Patrick Went to the Movies, where we'll be discussing a new movie every week, every Tuesday, a movie that we love.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell.
And this week we'll be talking about Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow came out in 1999, and it was rated R. And obviously I hadn't seen any R-rated movies in theaters, because I was, 11? But I remember, I feel, and this could just be a kid memory, but I feel like I almost convinced my parents to take me to go see this R-rated movie, because I think I had read something and Tim Burton had talked about how he was disappointed that it was R-rated, because he had kind of had this idea of it. But of course heads were getting chopped off, right? So I didn't see it in theaters though. My parents aren't that cool. But I remember when it came out on video, we rented it, and I was able to watch it. And I remember the TV was in the living room, and I would do like a bed of pillows, and I just remember laying on it right in front of the TV watching. And I also think it was a school night, which adds this extra element of, yeah. But what's funny is with kid memories, who knows if any of that is true. Like maybe I watched it in the middle of the afternoon, when I was 15. I came across Sleepy Hollow because when we were younger, the newspaper in Minnesota had what was called a variety section, and it was just pages of, there would be posters in there with movies that were coming out because the internet wasn't really a thing. And so I remember I used to cut out those pictures. It would just be different posters with the blurbs of reviews, and I had a lot of Sleepy Hollow because what I would do is I would cut them out and I would glue them in just like lined notebooks, almost like scrapbooking. And I have like 5 of them just full of pictures of movies that I loved and wanted to see. And my mom still has them because when they moved, I found them. And I had written titles on them, like Levi's Movie Book 2 or something like that. But I just remember one for Sleepy Hollow that I had. It was a color picture from a magazine of Christopher Walken when he's holding like his hatchet and he's got his head. It's the scene where he gets shot in the woods. And that's just an image that's seared into my brain.
When he gets shot, when he gets stabbed at the beginning, the flashback where he sees the 2 girls when he dies in the first place, the flashback.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't get shot. He gets stabbed, and then they cut his head off with his own sword.
I also have an obsession with witches. It's kind of like my favorite of the supernatural type of characters. And I wonder if it stems totally from this movie. The bad girl ends up being a witch.
Spoiler alert.
There's the witch in the woods, which is... I love that scene so much. And it's hilarious. There's a line there that I love is when Johnny Depp is going in there with this little boy, and they're going in, and she's like back turned to them doing whatever, and he's talking about how, also, I make no judgments on your occupation. Witch. Like, no, never mind to me. But the fact that he gets caught saying the word witch repeatedly. Another line that I love. Johnny Depp is great in the movie. I mean, he's great in every movie, but this character, I like how he draws, there's a line between he's like scared of things, but then he's also confident in his approach of crime solving. So it's a fun dynamic. But there's a part at the end, near the end, when he's solving the whole mystery of everything, and he goes into like the notary's office and he finds the will, and it's the Van Garrett's will, and he looks at it and he's like, Van Garrett's seal, broken, and then he like lifts it open. But the way he says broken it's.
Yeah, I do love his voice in this one. It's different than all his other voices. Like, he raised it up a couple of octaves almost, it feels.
I think his voice is also kind of a little normal in that it's just a British accent, right? But the way, he makes character decisions of inflection and the way he says things, it's still not just a straightforward British man. It's like Yeah. Another quote that I actually say a lot is at the end when the dad, Van Tassel, he's in the church, which we're going to talk about that because that is one of the best scenes of the whole movie. And he has realized that all of his friends have betrayed him. And he like goes up on top of the pulpit and he's got like a gun and he shouts, "There's a conspiracy here and I will seek it out." And I like saying that a lot, even if it's just...
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And then it's incredible because right after that, a fence post bursts through his chest and then he gets ripped out the window.
That is one of the things I absolutely love is, horsemen can't come on this property. And everybody thinks they're safe, but then there's stuff going on inside the building where the humans are turning on each other, but then the horseman figures out a way to kill him without entering the property.
Yeah.
Very smart. Very fun. I've never read the original Sleepy Hollow, but I wonder how much of it is super true to the book.
Almost none of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've read the full Washington Irving short story, but I have read the, like, abridged version. But there are no witches. There's no cutting off of heads. What? This story is literally just Ichabod Crane is this nervous school teacher, and he comes to this town in New York, and he's new, and he falls in love with Katrina Van Tassel, and her boyfriend is like Brom. And to scare off Ichabod Crane, Brom dresses up as the Headless Horseman. But the end of it is cool in that Ichabod Crane runs away, and no one has heard of him again. But there's one lady in town who's kind of a gossip queen who talks about how she saw him in New York when she went to visit, but they think she's lying. So the end of the book has a little bit of a mystery in that no one knows what happened to Ichabod Crane. And I think it doesn't actually say that Brom is the dude, but there's clues.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah, there's no actual Headless Horseman.
So it's just the rich people of the town fighting over that will? That's basically it?
No, there's no will, even.
What's
there's
the point
no
of the story?
It's just a fun little short spooky story about a guy, and when he's at this party, they tell him about Beware the Horseman, because that is a legend they have. And then, yeah, in the movie, Brom actually does do the pumpkin thing at Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the whole short story right there. But Ichabod Crane isn't a detective. He's not from New York. Well, I think he is from New York, but he's a school teacher.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
So when they say based on, they mean...
Very, very, very loose.
Yeah, the screenwriter had heard of Sleepy Hollow.
Well, here I was about to give Washington Irving some credit, but now I have to give it to whoever wrote this movie.
Andrew Kevin Walker.
You're good.
Yeah, but Washington Irving also wrote Rip Van Winkle, which is a good story. Of course, if they made the movie adaptation, it'd be, some space astronaut detective.
The theme of this movie is like the science versus magic, so we've seen that before. Especially for this type of time period where it's not Satan, it's chemistry, blah, blah, blah.
We are entering a new millennium.
In different ways, like Frankenstein is using science to create horror, whereas this one, he's trying to use science to eliminate the horror that isn't real. And then, of course, in this one, it turns out to be real, which is great.
But then he says, when he finds out that the horseman is controlled by someone, he's like, it is by someone of flesh and blood, which I have said all along. It's like, you're barely right.
You're barely right.
But to your first point, yeah, there's a great line when he first shows up, and before they tell him the story of the Hessian, he says, where I come from, we need no ghouls or goblins to whatever for the dead. And then the pastor says, you're a long way from home, constable. It's just such a great line. Yeah. But he says it's a 2 days ride to the north, the judge at the beginning. He's like, and I love the way Christopher Lee says that, where he's like, there's a town called Sleepy Hollow. Have you heard of it? And he's like, I have not. Such a great movie. Anyway, it's a 2 days ride, but it's only a 4-hour drive now in real life. So it's just funny to think that, man, 100 years ago, travel sucked.
Yeah.
This movie is really about how the hardships of traveling for these poor people. But speaking of traveling, that leads me to this point, which is at the beginning, the opening credits are when Ichabod Crane is in the carriage. And it's just gorgeous music. And my favorite bit of music is there's this amazing shot of the carriage, and it's like dawn or dusk, and it's the carriage, and it's silhouetted, and the music kicks in with like this great theme, and it's right on the credit of music by Danny Elfman. And I always had the thought that maybe Danny Elfman was like, you know what, I'm going to put the best music right on my name. And then as soon as it's done, you hear like it's either a wolf or like an owl, and it's like, so it's just this cool sound transition.
You said Ichabod Crane was in the carriage. It was just some Van Garrett or Tassel guy.
No. The opening credits, when Ichabod Crane is riding to Sleepy Hollow.
Oh.
So the movie opens with a carriage of Van Garrett guy.
Yeah.
And then there's the, here, I found a man in the water. And then the courtroom scene. And then when he's on his way is when the opening credits happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so they're
really late.
Yeah, they're a little delayed. So that's another quote that or a quote that I don't understand is at the beginning when he's in the jail cell, and the guy's like, "If there's water in the lungs, the cause of death is drowning." And he's like, "We must use," or no, he says, "We don't know that for sure," or whatever, if he was dead before when he went into the water. And then the guy says, "Cut him up. Are we heathens?" And I don't get the point he's making.
Well, he's saying that if there's water in the lungs, it doesn't matter because he drowned and he doesn't believe this whole new science thing Ichabod's going on about. And then he's like, or Ichabod says, "Oh, I would like to examine him, the body." And he's like, "Well, you're going to take this corpse and cut it to pieces? That's disgusting and gross and, like very not Christian to mutilate a corpse."
But the way he says cut him up is so casual, as if he doesn't care. He's like, "Cut him up. Are we heathens?"
Yeah. It'd be like, oatmeal? What are we, poor? Just like... He's just pointing out the thing that he's wanting to do. Like, it's like, yes, I know I've heard you say this before, and I don't care.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the movie is just full of great quotes. And, it's different in that other movies, there are quotes that we use in real life. Well, this movie, there's a few, and I've already kind of mentioned all of them, but just, it's one of those movies where every scene has a line that's like, ah. And I love it when a scene ends on kind of like a little mini cliffhanger of itself. And one that I love in this one is after the funeral for the Masbeth's dad. The priest comes up to him, or the
Doctor.
No, what's his name? Magistrate. No.
Uncle Vernon.
No. It's Phillips, but I don't remember his title. But anyway, he says, Elizabeth Masbeth wasn't the fourth victim, but the fifth. Or Jonathan Masbeth wasn't the fourth victim, but the fifth. And then Johnny Depp kind of like looks over at the graves, and there's a shot of the graves, and then he's like, "Young Masbeth, wake me before dawn," and then it cuts. And it's like such a cool, and all the scenes kind of end that way, where you're just excited to watch the next scene.
The flashbacks to Johnny Depp's younger self, the little boy, the
Oh yeah.
strange little face. He does. He has such a weird face.
Yeah. I hope that kid grown up doesn't watch this. Be like, "Hey!"
Well, he's probably like, "I look a lot better now that I'm not a weird-faced little child." But, because he's just got these huge eyes and this little smile, and he never says anything. He's always just like,
Yeah.
his mom gets murdered, and he's like...
Yeah. There's like no dialogue in any of those scenes, except I think her saying, "Ichabod."
Wasn't she sing a song or something?
No, she just says, "Ichabod,"
And
which is kind of singing.
Anyway, she's got the prestige thing with the bird in the cage. What was my
Optics.
point? Optics.
Two pictures.
Two pictures.
In the spinning comes one. Appears one.
Here's one.
You do know magic. Anyway, sorry. Just gonna quote the whole movie while you talk. It's fine. She's easily impressed if that is magic.
Well, they live in this tiny little town.
I know, but it's just he's spinning a little circle piece of paper. Like, imagine if a real magician showed up and like made a bird disappear. That would blow her freaking mind.
Well, maybe she's just like, "Oh, real magic," because I'm trying to get close to this Ichabod guy.
Yeah, maybe, but her reaction is like a 9-year-old being like, "What?" It doesn't make any sense.
Well, she has seen her mom or her aunt, whoever, do real magic. So it's kind of like she already knows what real magic looks like, right? Isn't she aware that the horseman is controlled by her
No.
mom? She's not?
No.
That's a real
And her,
mom.
she doesn't know. Her mom doesn't know magic. Her real mom is dead. It's her stepmom that's the evil one. The stepmom at the end, her whole monologue, she's like, "I killed that woman, and then I put myself in the marriage bed."
So Christina Ricci has no idea.
Well, she does magic herself. Or at least she does spells and has that book. Well, now you're making me question it.
No, I think you're right. I just haven't seen it nearly as many times, and it's been a minute.
Yeah, she has the book of spells. That's what she gives Johnny Depp. And she does spell charms on the floor of the church underneath Ichabod's bed. That's a great moment when they move the bed and there's a spider and he's like, no, I mustn't. You touch it. Or whatever. Because I like he doesn't explain why. He just says, "No, I mustn't." Anyway, your point.
That she was pretending to be impressed by his little birdie thing. Even if it did impress her, she was probably more just like for his sake. a reaction.
She's like, cool, Ichabod.
Optics.
I do love that idea, how there's like good witchcraft and bad witchcraft, and how at the end Ichabod comes to term with it, because that's something that he says he's given up on his faith when he was 12 because his father was a black belt tyrant that straight up murders his mom because she's doing witchcraft. And so it's not just that he believes in science to get rid of it, he's also getting rid of his childhood trauma by being like, no, I don't want to deal with any of it. And so then Katrina kind of reawakens that in him, and there's a line when he wakes up and she's there in bed after Brahm is dead, which she dismisses his life entirely. She's like, I've shed my tears for Brahm, but I'm fine now. But he says, and that dude got cut in half. But he says, maybe there is a little bit of a witch in you, Katrina, because you've bewitched me. Which. I've always kind of wanted to date a witch, so I could say that line. You can't really use that in any normal date situation. Hey, maybe you are kind of a witch. Because you bewitched me. She gets on her broom and flies off angrily. And one thing about Katrina is, because I've seen the movie so many times, you kind of forget that the reveals are meant to be reveals. Yeah. And so even at the end, after her dad gets murdered in the church, and there's that great shot of her like passed out and her fingers got the pink on it, and like you see the spell, and they think it's an evil spell. So then as an audience, you think, oh, she's the witch the whole time. And then even at the end, she's like sitting all creepily, and Ichabod is like, says something to the effect of like, sometimes the best people are the worst, or something like that. It's a harsh reality of life, young Mazbeth. And then there's the reveal of the mom. But the idea that you might think Katrina is the bad guy is just something that I never think of ever, because I've seen it a million times.
Yeah, that's interesting. With the misleads or the narration.
Right. That have no effect on us because we've seen it so many times to the point that you don't even remember they're supposed to be misleading.
I love in the opening, the very, very opening, with the carved pumpkin face on the scarecrow.
Yeah.
It's a huge scarecrow.
Yeah, and apparently there's like 4 of them.
Oh, really?
Well, because when they pass one, and then when he jumps out and he's running, he runs into a different one.
I don't know, I thought it was just the same one. It was just edited poorly. I don't know. Just saying.
That can't be.
No, but I love how it looks, and especially when he's like, and then it shows it. It's like, big scare, and he's like, oh, it's not the horseman, it's just the pumpkin.
Yeah.
And then the horseman's right there, and it cuts his head off, and then the pumpkin gets blood splattered on it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a really cool, really ominous jack-o'-lantern looking thing.
What if the pumpkin, like, it couldn't move, and so then it gets blood splattered on its face, and it's like, just has to sit there the whole time with blood.
My face itches!
And he just saw
it. Wipe this off!
Yeah. And he's like, and I'm horrified at what I witnessed. Yeah.
And people come and get the body, like bugs crawling on the blood, and he's just like, ah!
What I love about the opening is you see drips of red on this paper, and you think it's maybe blood, but then it's just wax for a sealant. And then there's that great shot of the lift up of the Van Garrett seal.
The seal, when it's laying there, it looks like a skull.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he grabs it and pushes it in, you can tell it's a seal. But just like the 2 little shield things, and then the ribbon with the words, it just looks like a skull when the rubber thing's sitting there. Burton loves putting blood drops in the beginning of his movies. I guess Sweeney Todd, it turns into like a whole river of blood in the sewer, but...
I've never seen Sweeney Todd.
What?
Yeah. So back to the church scene. It's not the climax of the movie. It's like the second to last climax, where the conspiracy is revealed. Baltus Van Tassel is murdered. But anyway, it builds up to they're all scared, and they're all going into the church in the town, and he comes running, Baltus Van Tassel comes running, and he's like, the horseman killed your mother! And they like all go inside. And just the chaos that is in the church, all these amazing shots of people trying to push through, and it's just, and then they break out the windows, and the horseman is riding around, and he can't come in because it's holy ground, and they're like shooting at him, and he like throws his hatchet, but then it like melts. And then inside, the conspirators are all talking, and he's like, your four friends played you false. And then they like hits him in the head with the cross, the pastor does, which is incredible. And then he like shoots the pastor, And then he's like, there's a conspiracy here. And then through the chest, out the window, drug across the entire ground until just his head is outside the fence. And then the scene is, whoa. And then she passes out. And then you see the whole symbol on the floor. And it's just, there's so much going on in that scene, and it all has culminated in the music, and there's like action going on, and that's great. I just love the idea that there is a conspiracy kind of going on in the town.
One of the main things about the whole movie is Ichabod's here to prove that science and logical deduction can solve anything.
Right. Find
And
the murderer.
Yeah, find the murderer. And then with the whole conspiracy, even when he hands him the Bible and he opens it up, in the very beginning he looks at the family tree with the Von Tassel and Von Garrett that were like part of the same family tree. It's like, okay, it's a detective movie. There's clues. He is going to solve this thing. And then it turns out that the thing he's solving is supernatural.
Yeah.
So it's both of those themes.
Yeah, that part when the pastor's like, this is the only book I recommend you read.
Yeah.
He slams it down. There's this big, thick Bible.
And then he puts his deduction book on top of it before he goes to talk to him.
That sequence is great too, where they're like, how much have your superiors told you? And he's like, just that their heads were found. And then...
Because he's like walking around like he's in control of the room, you know, he's like, this is what's going on, there's a murder here, and I'm going to solve it, blah, blah, blah. And then they're all just like looking at each other all awkwardly and afraid and stuff. And then it's like, you think that they're all like, okay, he's going to find out what's going on here. But they're all just like, what does he think he's doing?
Yeah.
There's a headless horseman. You're going to find out who he is? Okay.
Yeah, we have haunted woods, man. And then, he's like, their heads were found severed. And he says, no, their heads were not found at all. And then, he tells the story, and it like zooms in on the fire. And then it's just Christopher Walken hacking away at all these people.
He filed his teeth down to points.
Yeah. To add to the ferocity of his appearance.
Yeah. Oh, Christopher Walken, one of the most iconic voices ever, doesn't say a single line. He just goes, ah! That's the only time we hear his voice, when he's like, ah! When he's fighting.
Right.
He never says a word.
Yeah, well, he also goes, shh, to the little girls.
I didn't say he doesn't make any sounds.
Do you think he practiced?
Yeah.
He's in his room, like, I've got 2 lines. Ah, and shh.
Shush!
You know, that scene where he's being chased and he gets shot and his horse falls over. That's like a real horse. And I always wondered that in movies.
They shot his horse?
I've always wondered that in movies where they say no animals were harmed during this production. But how do you teach a horse to fall, and then also the horse kind of understands, well, not that it's acting, obviously, but just, I guess that's just a question in general about animals. When they're doing something that's supposed to be bad, how does the animal in real life differentiate between what they like rip me down and I have to fall? You know, does that make sense? Like, how do you teach a
I
horse
understand what
to
you're
fall?
saying, but it's when you say that you're training the animal to do something that in real life would typically be bad. The horse isn't thinking, I have to pretend to be shot. The horse is thinking, if I lay down fast, I'll get a treat. You know, there's always positive reinforcement. You know, any animal who's trained to do something, when they've accomplished their task, they receive the treat, the goal, you know? That's why they're doing it. So to them, you know, it's like, for dogs and whatever, if they're pretending, you know, to like, oh, and they fall over. To them, it's not, I'm pretending to die. It's, this is the movement I have to do properly in order to get what I want.
Right, I get that they're not, in character. But like a scene where a dog has to chase a bike, right? You're rewarding him to chase a bike. So then in real life, would that dog be like, gotta chase this bike? Like when it's behaviors that aren't wanted, but they do it in movies, I just don't understand how the animal doesn't cross that over with real life. Because again, it doesn't know that it's playing pretend.
Well, it's not just the bike chasing dog. That's what he was trying to do. Like, all right, it's time for the bike chasing scene. Bring the other dog. You know, it's like, this is what we're doing now. So they train him to do the thing, probably with certain keywords. I don't know. But I'm sure the dog in real life isn't just running around on the streets.
Yeah, but if I trained a dog 8 hours a day to chase a bike, even if it's just for one shot, you'd think that the next time he saw a bike, he would associate with a treat. I mean, that's how you train dogs in general.
Well, no.
We're getting off track.
Yes, we are. But he would associate you telling him to do something with the treat. You know? The dog doesn't go out in the backyard when nobody's home and sit and be like, I sat. I should be fed right now.
Yes, but if I teach a dog to bring me the newspaper, even you stop giving him treats when he does it. That's part of training. So he would go out, get the newspaper, come back in, and you're like, good boy. So if you trained a dog to chase a bike, and every time he comes back you give him a treat, he's going to start doing that regardless of whether or not you're giving him a treat. That's the whole point of training. So back to... What movie are we talking? What movie?
Beethoven?
What? But anyway, I even like that. There's even a little subplot in that the horsemen and the witches, they have their own story. The conspiracy of the birth and the new will. Ichabod Crane trying to find out who it is. Katrina and her witchcraft. Like there are like 5 different sub-threads kind of all merging together. One thing that I always thought was interesting was when at the beginning the flashback with the Hessian in the woods and he sees the little girls. That's supposed to be Van Tassel telling the story. But he wouldn't know that detail. So it's like the movie then tells us something extra.
It took a liberty?
Yeah, because he starts talking, zoom in on the fire. When it pulls out, he's still talking. He's finishing up the story. And he even talks, he's got a little narration over the flashbacks. So it's like he's telling the story. And you think at the end they'd be like, what were those 2 little girls? What were you talking about?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know, I just wanted to add a little bit of flair.
Yeah, because later on, who's the one who brings up the memory, and then
It's the witch, it's the bad girl.
she's the one telling
Yeah,
you.
me and my sister were out gathering firewood when we came across the Hessian.
Okay, cool. So
And I swore I gave my soul to Satan, that he would raise him from the ground and avenge me. There are 2 parts of that movie that always grossed me out as a kid. The first is when he's doing the autopsy, and that blood squirts on his face and like gets in his mouth. Right. Which people have pointed out online that it would have been coagulated or whatever by then.
Oh yeah. Because he's covered in it when he comes out, and it's like...
And then the second time is when the Reverend is having an affair with the stepmom out in the woods. She like cuts her hand, and he turns around and sees it, and then he goes in his face. It's like, like he's licking her blood, man.
Yeah. Well, why would he think that would be a sexy thing to do?
That's true, yeah. And I
He'd
wonder.
probably be like, "Whoa, this isn't what I wanted when I came out here."
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Cause she even like spreads it on his back, and I wonder if she was kind of caught off guard. Like she's like, I need to smear my blood on him so the Hessian, whatever, and then he just straight up licks her hand. She's probably like, what the?
This blood was not meant for you.
It's also one of those movies where the villain monologues at the end, but the way that she's telling a story that's not just revealing her plan, even though it is, but it also fills in all these gaps. So it's a little bit more interesting because she tells a story about her and her sister in the woods and how they connect and whatever, as opposed to just, it was me, I did it. You know,
I'm running the town.
Yeah.
I get all the money.
Yeah. And I suppose, too, if I'm just excusing movies I love for doing things that I'm not a fan of in other movies, the Horseman has successfully killed everybody. He's a supernatural force.
Yeah.
So when she says, tonight he rides for you, like, she's just 100% confident that this supernatural being from the devil is going to kill her because he's done it every single time before. And how on earth are they going to stop him? She has the skull. So, it's a justified confidence. You know, in other movies where the bad guy is like, you won't stop me in 15 minutes, and then he leaves the room, just leaves the guy there alone. It's like, well, of course he's going to stop you. There's no reason for you to leave him. Why don't you just kill him? Whereas this movie, it's a little different because she's got a supernatural, unstoppable force that has no head, that can't be killed. So I will allow it.
In Austin Powers, when Seth Green's talking to Dr. Evil, and he's like, "You're not going to kill him?" He's like, "No, I'm just going to leave him in an intense but easily escapable situation and hope everything plans out." What? He's like, "I have a gun in my room."
Yeah.
Like, let's kill him together right now.
Although, now that we're talking about it, her plan is to kill Katrina. She's the last one in the way because the will changed. So she's the last one to inherit the fortune of the Van Tassels. And I guess she would just be rich. That's the ultimate goal, is to be rich. Like avenge her family. I'm but a humble farmer that has prospered. And banker. And lawyer. Shall we proceed? Last October I went and visited my sister in New York. And we went to this huge property outside of the city where they had like 7 different haunted houses, different themes that you could go in, and it was called like the Headless Horseman Fair or something. I don't remember the title, but the logo is the Headless Horseman. And it opens, you get on this hayride and you're going through all these cool different areas. I was sitting on the back of the hayride, and at one part, this dude dressed as a Headless Horseman on a huge black horse came riding up out of the woods, and he just walks up behind and then to the side of the hayride. And, you know, I'm not around horses very often, and so you kind of, for me, it's easy to forget how big they are. And it felt powerful. And so, yeah, in the movie, seeing this horseman come up would be like, ah. And now when I watch it, I know what this is like.
So the thing where earlier on, like when he's heading there, he's got those, 16 dots on his hand?
Well, it's more than that. They're just all over.
We're like, that's interesting and weird. And then later we find out that he was just a kid and he put his hands on
The torture chair.
Did that ever have a point?
Oh, it had a lot of points. Sharp points.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he finally has the last dream that puts all those pieces in place, he looks at his hands and they're bleeding, and he's remembering. So he's actually forgotten his whole childhood.
Yeah.
And so at the end...
Because it's traumatic.
Right. And so at the end, that's when he puts all those pieces together. I think it's just supposed to be kind of like a visual representation of scarring.
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that there was something more supernatural going on with those things on his hands. Because, A, they don't look like scars. You know, they look like they're freshly put little, like, imprints in the skin.
Right.
You know, like he just had his hand resting on something for a long time. And it's like, you know, when you wake up and you have, like, the blanket curls on your skin, you know?
Yeah.
So, I was just thought, like, they look so crisp and fresh.
And then they bleed.
And then, well, yeah, but, like, that they should have had a bigger supernatural point, but I guess the point is like almost a symbolic or something, like you said, of scarring from trauma.
Yeah. Well, he gets those.
Yeah, like 20
Terrified.
years ago.
It's this first time in his torture room of his father, and then the door opens and the mom flies out in blood. And so it's like he got those the day his mom died.
Yeah.
Which I also love that in the little dream sequence where he's in the church. It's just like this white church with a red carpet, and his dad is walking down the aisle, but then when it cuts, it's the horseman is walking past him. The sequence where the horseman goes into the Killian home with the midwife and the guy who gives him gunpowder and the little boy. The guy's sitting in front of his fire. The flames go up, which there are skulls, special effects in the flames when the fire gets bigger. The horseman kicks open the door, and then they fight, and then, like, chops off the dude's head. And yeah, that's right. Sorry, I'm all over the place. But the kid is playing with the candle thing, and so there's, like, witches and cats all along the wall with the candle. And then the horseman comes in, and she, like, has the boy underneath, and she pulls the rug down, and she's, like, rising up. And you get that great shot of him holding the head of the husband, and then the shadow of the hatchet going over her face. Boom, you hear the noise, the little boy is underneath, and then you hear, and then her eyes stop on the floorboards and look down at him. And then you think the horseman's going to leave, and he stops at the door, whips around, starts hacking at the floorboards, and picks the kid up. And then when he's walking out of the house, it shows him, like, tightening up the bag. So he straight up cut off this kid's head, which, two things about that I love, because I love it. One, that means the stepmom ordered the horseman to kill not only the husband, the wife, but also the child, which just adds to how evil she is. Two, movies never kill kids. And that's something we talked about with Jurassic Park, where movies overpower their children, but in Jurassic Park, it's like, no, they're in real scary situations and they act like kids. Well, this one, it's, no, we're going to straight up murder children, which makes the movie way more intense and creepy. I mean, they don't show it, but in the writing of it, when they were talking about that scene, so he cuts off this 4-year-old's head. Yes.
I believe that Macbeth, when the first time that was ever put on, was the first time that they had even hinted at killing kids on stage. Well, because they have the two children actors. I don't know if we see the guy, like, go into the room with the kids with the knife, or if we actually see him, like, pretend to stab them. I don't remember. But I remember hearing somewhere that it was, like, a big thing.
Well, that's
Shakespeare was, like, pushing the boundaries of what you were supposed to show an audience.
Yeah. Sleepy Hollow is like Shakespeare. Speaking of the heads being cut off, they actually built there was this one prop head that spun. It's when the bald guy gets his head cut off out in the cornfield or whatever. His head spins and then rolls down the hill. They built a mechanism that spun his head. Yeah, which is
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. Another little fun behind the scenes thing is the guy who plays the horseman without the head is a stuntman named Ray Park, who played Darth Maul in Star Wars, and he played Toad in the first X-Men movie.
I didn't know that was him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which his career for those 3 years, Sleepy Hollow came out in '99, Star Wars came out in '99, Phantom Menace with Darth Maul, and then X-Men came out in 2000. So he was like this huge kind of character in 3 movies in 2 years.
He was in Fanboys.
I don't know what that is. That's an interesting kind of action choice that they made with the movie, is that they're going to be really good with flipping axes and swords. Like, it seems a little bit kind of modern-y with like the way they fight. But I love the fight scene with Brahm on the bridge. He gets cut in half and they stop and you hear him walking and they kind of look up as he drops behind him. I just remembered this, I have like one of those model replica things of the horseman and his horse with like the Tree of the Dead. It's still in a box. I never played with it.
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah. It's
Where?
like nice rubber.
Where is it?
Well, my mom has it, as always. My mom has all the things.
I love that tree. It looks so cool.
Tree of the Dead.
Whoever the artist was who like probably came up with 5 or 6 different designs for how the tree was gonna look, and that was the one.
Yeah, I always love the idea of chopping the tree and blood comes out.
Yes.
And we actually did. I don't know if it was directly influenced. But
Yeah.
we made this film back in 2012.
Yep.
Called Evelyn's Forest. It's
Yep.
great. Maybe you'll see it someday.
Yeah.
But part of the movie, there's a scene where this character is chopping down a tree, and he notices blood, so he touches it, and like the music kind of kicks in. He keeps chopping, and there's more and more blood. And I wonder if that was directly, like subconsciously, from Sleepy Hollow, because it's such a great sequence. The idea of a tree bleeding. I also like the idea of when they find the skeleton, the body next to that tree, when it's called to life, worms all squirm around it, and then he bursts from the tree below.
Oh yeah, I love when he shoots out of it. Oh my god.
Oh, there was a line that I never understood until way older, when after Ichabod sees the horseman and he's crazy for like a day, he comes out and he's like, I need brave men to go with me into the western woods. And Van Tassel says, we thought you chart your boat. But the way he says chart your boat, I never knew that it was chart your boat. I just thought it was, we thought you chart your boat. Which is similar to Jurassic Park, when John Hammond is, I've got a boat waiting by and
By a Choco.
try a Chaco. What does he say again?
Got a plane standing by at Choco.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's apparently cha words confuse little Levi. That's a line that I say a lot, is when they're in the woods, Johnny Depp and his little boy servant, Mazbeth. He says, you hear that? It's quiet. No birds. No noise. And then Johnny Depp says, quicken pace. I've always thought, so Tim Burton directed Sleepy Hollow, and Tim Burton directed 1989 Batman. And the scene at the end of Sleepy Hollow where they're climbing up the tower and like old wood is breaking, I always felt very similar to me to the end of Batman when he's climbing up the church tower because old wood is breaking, and it just felt very familiar. And the Sleepy Hollow is kind of dressed like Batman in color and cape and leather.
Did you say the Sleepy Hollow is dressed like Batman?
Yeah. But that scene, that windmill explodes for some reason. Like it shows he drops the lantern and the flames kind of spread over these bags of some unknown substance.
Probably fertilizer.
Yeah, but then the whole thing just like a modern day action movie, which as a kid I loved. But if someone were to tell me like what's one maybe change you would make, like maybe I wouldn't have this huge explosion of a windmill made out of like paper and wood.
Yeah, just having it ignite on fire would be good enough.
Right. Another line that I say is at the beginning when the judge, Christopher Lee, is talking to Tim Burton. He's talking to Johnny Depp. And then he says, this is a song we've heard you sing once before. That's a song you've sung once. Anyway, something to the effect. So maybe I don't quote it verbatim, but I quote it, or at least I try.
So when you say something similar, you at least think of Sleepy Hollow when
Right.
you're saying it.
Also, when someone's trying to cut off my head, and I'm on my horse and running, I'm like, this is just like Tim Burton's 1999 adaptation of Washington Irving's short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow. Shink!
I love at the end when Miranda, whoever, gets knocked out, and then when she's waking up, the horseman's got her. So she's like, oh no, it's all over.
I immediately regret this decision.
And
then he kisses her and like blood comes out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, and then that great shot of her finger in the tree at the end. It's just her hand and it like curls in.
Yeah.
And then Ichabod Crane faints.
When he gets his skull back and the CGI of the muscles and the blood and everything, putting his head back, and then there's his eyeballs for a second. It's very funny, but also decent CGI.
Yeah, it still holds up.
Yeah. And then he gets his actual face with his sharp teeth, everything, and then he's not really a bad guy anymore because he was just a supernatural force being used, and now he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
So he takes her.
Although he was a butcher. It says like this butcher
Yeah.
came for love of carnage, not money.
He probably wouldn't have killed all those certain people had she not put him up to it.
That's true. The movie is peppered with cool little supernatural elements that I love. The sword of the horseman, it's like searing red hot, but it somehow doesn't leave blisters or charring.
The devil's fire.
The devil's fire. The church being holy ground with the hatchet melting, the witch in the woods. Before Mazbeth dies, he's up in his old tree fort, and smoke comes in.
Yeah. To pinch
the
out the
wisps,
lights, the little like arms, to pinch out all the torches.
Pinch out all the torches. It's like, who's in control of that,
Why did that dude, whatever his name was, leave his little wooden structure?
Well, there's a shot of it collapsed. But it is an interesting cut where it shows him, he's in there.
He's like in there all safe.
Yeah, it zooms in on him.
And then he's running out in the middle of the woods down a road.
Yeah, but it shows it later when they guns fire and they're like, the horseman is struck again! And you see that the whole thing is collapsed. So probably the horseman chopped it down.
Well, I
and the
would
guy
have
had
loved to have
run.
seen that. I understand that we haven't seen too much of the Hessian yet.
Right.
Apart from the flashback.
Yeah.
But, like, we could have seen the guy in there with the sword, like, cutting through boards, and then it could have cut to him, like, scrambling out and running.
That would have been a little too action movie-y. Plus, there needs to be a progression of seeing the horseman accomplish his task. The first one is just a chase down in the woods and he cuts off his head. And then the second one is it actually shows him, like, come out of the woods and it whips the scarecrow around and then he runs up the hill, cuts off the dude's head, and then it shows him actually come down and pick the head up.
Yeah.
And then
I love that.
Yeah. And then the third time is killing the midwife and her family. And then that leads into a fight scene with the horseman where he kills Brom. And so there's a progression of the Hessians seeing him, and then also each scene is a little bit longer every single time until at the end when he's just there for the entire chase all the way up until the end.
Not counting the mislead where it's actually Brom.
Right.
Which is, when you see it, it's like almost scary, but then he's holding that pumpkin, and you're like,
yeah,
that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not what the Hessian is, holding the pumpkin. It's weird. Then when he throws the pumpkin...
Yeah, it's like a straight shot. Yeah, it doesn't roll or anything. It just...
Yeah.
Well, it also, there's kind of a similar, probably unintentional match cut when they throw the skull, and like it seems the way he catches it, it's just like a straight catch. But I also like that when he's about to kill her, and he's like, "Hessie, horseman!" And the horseman drops her, and he's just like... he turns his whole body.
Full self.
Yeah. Which that's called the Batman turn, because Tim Burton's first two Batman movies, yeah, his neck was attached, so he had to... his whole body. Which is why the joke in The Dark Knight, where he's like, you want to be able to turn your neck, he's like, sure, it'd make backing out of the driveway easier, is actually a weird meta reference to a real life thing of other Batman movies. There are a lot of, obviously, Tim Burton elements sprinkled in this movie, but I will say it's a little bit more restrained than others. And I actually think that's why it has more of a traditional repeat value. Whereas I feel like for me personally, some of other Tim Burton's other movies, while great, you kind of have to be a little bit in the mood for. Like Beetlejuice, for example, is a fantastic movie, but it dips into some really weird territory, right? Which is fine. But Sleepy Hollow, like you've got some, like I said, Tim Burton-esque things where when he puts on his goggles and it's like magnifying and it's like, and it's like, it's not really super realistic. There is, like you said, the eyes popping out, which is just kind of like this dark little bit of humor visually. The Tree of the Dead is very twisty. It almost looks like it could be a tree straight out of Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, it even actually kind of looks clay. So it's very much a Tim Burton movie, but I feel it's more of a wider audience.
The setting and everything is more like historically realistic. The buildings, the place with like, the forest and everything. It's not all, like Edward Scissorhands where it's like obviously this whole set was built, stylized.
Right.
You know, whereas Sleepy Hollow is like the set was probably built on an actual setting with an actual forest, etc. So like, it's supposed to look real.
Yeah.
And not, you know, like the buildings aren't like made weird, so they're weird shapes.
Right, yeah.
It's realistic. So far less stylized, even though the stylized part is a realistic stylization. I don't know.
I loved Johnny Depp's hair in the movie. Like, I always thought it would be cool as a kid to have that hair, but I never did. And then also his outfit, like this black kind of trench coat thing. But you could never wear that today. People would think you were really weird.
People think lots of people are weird. Go for it.
Yeah, but they'd be like, "Hey, are you Edgar Allan Poe?" Like, no, I'm Ichabod Crane from Tim Burton's 1999 Sleepy Hollow. At the beginning, when Ichabod first gets into the house, they're like having a party, and Katrina is playing that game where she's blindfolded and she's gonna grab a guy and kiss him, which I've never played that game, and whoever came up with that was just a dude, right? Like, no girl would be like, "Hey, let's blindfold me and have a men dance around me and I have to kiss one of them." That is not something.
How am I gonna get to kiss this girl?
Yeah, that is not.
I know, we could make it by chance.
Yeah, a woman did not come up with that.
No.
But it's funny when she grabs him, and she's like, "Theodore." He's like, "No, ma'am, I am a stranger." And she's like, "Well, have a kiss when I count." I wonder if Theodore, he's clearly in the group, so he's probably watching that encounter, and he's like, "Ah, that could have been me." Or also, she knows what my face feels like.
I always thought it was Brom, because he was like right there, like he would have been the one to be grabbed.
Yeah, that too. It would have been him.
His name
is not Theodore.
Theodore Bromley?
No, it's Brom.
Brom Theodore.
I think that's just his name, Brom.
Theodore Brommer?
No last name, just Brom.
Just Brom.
No, but yeah, you're right. That is supposed to be the case where it would have been Brom. He would have got a kiss, but instead this dude comes in. Theodore is in that group.
That poor guy.
Yeah.
He's probably like, I'm all the way over here. She would have touched Brom and said Theodore. I'm so upset. She really wanted me.
Yeah. Or he thought he had like a manlier jaw structure than Johnny Depp, so he's like, "She thought that was me." You know, he's testing his lower jaw.
He kills himself.
Katrina though really gets, her like dad gets murdered in front of her. Her stepmom turns out to be a witch trying to kill her.
Ichabod leaves.
Speaking of Katrina and kissing, there's a scene later when Ichabod Crane is with young Masbeth and they're in the Western Wood, and they see like this woman on a horse, and he comes up and he's got his pistol, and then he's about to shoot at her, and it's her, and she turns around. He's like, "Katrina, I might have shot you." And then she says, "You know, I'm here because no one else would come." And then there's just suddenly a moment where both of them are like they're gonna kiss, and then young Masbeth, I think, interrupts. But it's just such the weirdest timing for a kiss. You know, like you're in these creepy woods, you're about to shoot her. I guess maybe your adrenaline is going, but they're not even talking about anything romantic. She's like, "No one else would come with you," and he's like, "Well, you gotta shoot your shot." But she leans in too. It's just a weird moment. I don't know why you would want to kiss at that time.
I don't think it had anything to do with the moment. It had to do with them.
To me, it's just so random that, you know, like, there's a mouse on the floor. I'm like, "Oh, I got it."
Back to the stylized versus not stylized of it. The color scheme is all really nice and not like grayscale, but like creepy. There's not a whole lot of color at all.
Yeah.
So where there is color, it's usually blood.
Yeah, the flames are kind of like that muted orange. They're not like a popping orange.
So when colors do pop, it's like, whoa!
Yeah, the most color is the flashbacks of Ichabod's mom.
Oh yeah.
When she's the witch and she's spinning in that area and she starts to fly. Which I had a crush on that lady. That's actually Tim Burton's wife. Or, I don't know if they're still married. But that was his wife in real life.
When I was growing up, you know, like Edward Scissorhands' Nightmare Before Christmas, which I didn't see until I was, in like 9th grade. But I had always thought of him as a super weird guy. He probably looked really weird. So the first time I ever saw what he actually looks like, it was like, oh, he just looks like a dude.
Yeah.
You know? It wasn't like, right? It was just whatever. Same with like John Williams, other people. It was like when I finally saw them, it was like, oh, that is not what I had been picturing.
What were you picturing John Williams?
Mm-hmm. An old guy with like tufts of crazy hair coming out.
Oh, interesting.
And he's just like some nice looking dude. There's a really high death count in this movie. I mean, all the main leaders of the town, they all die.
Yeah.
Every one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Because even the one dude hangs himself off screen.
Yeah.
The guy who's like, we did not know it was a murdering plot. The stepmom kills her sister, chops off the witch's head.
Yep.
And then she also kills the servant girl to then use the hand in her cut to make everyone think that she's dead.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What a witch. For a movie that doesn't feel so much like a horror movie because it's so fun and it's not like super gory. You know, like you see the neck hole where the head used to be and it's like, oh, okay, it's a little weird. And there's some other moments that kind of make you scream, but it's not like a traditional horror movie at all.
Yeah. Well,
it feels like a fun Halloween action movie.
Yeah, he wanted it to be PG-13.
For a really bloody, gory movie, it doesn't feel like it.
I remember the tagline for the movie said, "Heads will roll."
Heads will roll. It's almost like a comedy.
It is the perfect Halloween movie, and Halloween is coming up. It's got jack-o'-lanterns, it's got a headless horseman, it's got witches, it's Tim Burton, it's Johnny Depp, it's like a murder mystery, and it's in a town.
A beautiful setting with a creepy forest with lots of fog and that awesome tree at the end.
And fall trees and scarecrows, and it is called Sleepy Hollow. Please like this video, subscribe, ring the notification bell.
Most of all, comment. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you like about this movie, especially if you haven't seen it and then you do watch it. I really want to know.
We put out videos every week,
Every Tuesday, yep, new one.
and next week will be Halloween week, and we are very excited.
Next week we're doing one of our all-time favorite movies. Both of us. Both of our favorites list have this one so high up to the top.
M. Night Shyamalan's
The Village.
I'm Levi,
I am Patrick.
and this has been Levi and Patrick Went to the Movies, Sleepy Hollow.